Have humans already visited Mars? Either in recent times or possibly even in our distant past? Could images beamed back from various probes provide any proof of this? Or is it just another case of pareidolia? Strap yourselves in. This one is well and truly out of this world. Mars, Earth's second closest neighbor, is cold, barren, and deadly. Orbiting at an average distance of 142 million miles from the Sun, human beings are yet to set foot upon this small, unforgiving world. Or are we? Mars is undoubtedly the next stepping stone in our ongoing exploration of the solar system. But does mankind have a much greater link to the red planet than we realize? Have we secretly already visited Mars? Could ancient civilizations have traveled there, or maybe even have originated there? Back in 1976, the Viking 1 spacecraft, in orbit around Mars, was tasked with photographing the Martian surface and beaming the images back to Earth for analysis. This was so that NASA could locate and select suitable landing sites for its sister ship, Viking 2. In late July of that year, Viking 1 sent back 18 images of a region in the planet's northern hemisphere which had, up until that point, remained uncharted. Little did NASA know it at the time, but one of those images would go on to capture the public's imagination for decades to come. At first glance, it appeared to be nothing more than a fairly expansive and unremarkable plateau, but on closer inspection, tucked away in an area covering no more than 25 square miles, mission controllers were startled to see what resembled a huge human-like face staring back at them. This face was surrounded by a number of other unnatural-looking structures, which initially raised a few eyebrows. But when examined further, NASA officials simply deemed these anomalies to be optical illusions and released the pictures regardless. The notion of civilizations on Mars had been a huge part of science fiction culture for well over a century by this time, and when the image finally went public in the weeks that followed, imaginations understandably ran wild. Aside from the face, other features within the same area were singled out, such as the city and the five-sided pyramid. Conspiracy theorists claimed that there was no way these structures could have formed naturally, though geologists largely disagreed. Even so, the region became known as the Cydonia Complex, and in the wake of its discovery, it has inspired many science fiction writers and alternate history theorists alike. Sensationalism over the Cydonia Complex gradually evaporated, as both the European Space Agency and NASA released more images of the region from different angles, altitudes, and at greater resolutions. These new images revealed the face to be nothing more than a large mesa of jagged rocks. The official explanation was that, when viewed from just the right angle, tricks of light and shadow combined to give it the spooky appearance of a face looking back at us. But in reality, it bore little to no resemblance. However, some proponents of the ancient Martian civilization theory remained unconvinced, declaring that these new images were forgeries on the part of both NASA and the European Space Agency, in order to cover up the truth. Subscribers to this belief were largely alone in their assumptions, that was, at least, until 2004, when the NASA rovers Spirit and Opportunity touched down on the surface of Mars and began transmitting some very interesting images back to Earth. This image was captured by the Spirit rover in 2005, and for almost 10 years, it sat in NASA's archives without so much as a whisper of anything unusual. It wasn't until 2014 that the more eagle-eyed observers amongst us noticed something strange, and all the attention was suddenly on this rock in particular. On closer inspection, it looks very much like a human or humanoid skull, half buried in the Martian soil. And whilst one might simply put this down to pareidolia, even the most ardent of skeptics would have to agree that its resemblance to a human skull is rather striking. Spirit continued to send back more anomalies, supposed rocks, which closely resemble elongated skulls, similar to those found in ancient Mayan ruins and those of other cultures, the result of a process known as head binding. More recently, the Curiosity rover has sent back numerous images depicting more of these odd skulls. These pictures lead many to believe that ancient civilizations were somehow able to travel to Mars, or that they even originated there. There are countless prehistoric cave drawings, ancient works of art, and paintings from the Middle Ages which are believed to depict visitations by UFOs and interactions with extraterrestrial beings. And whilst many skeptics would argue that this is purely down to interpretation, it is not beyond all possibility. Unfortunately, the Opportunity rover became unresponsive in 2010. But both Spirit and Curiosity continue to transmit images to this day, and some of them are quite peculiar, to say the least. Skulls aside, this image, captured by Curiosity, appears to show what looks like a thigh bone. And it is just one of many alleged images of bones on Mars. This one, it has to be said, looks very much like the head of a statue. Whilst these pictures are quite compelling for some, and hard to believe for others, things are about to get even weirder. In July 2014, an ex-US Marine, going under the pseudonym of Captain K, reported to the press that he had spent 17 of his 20 years in the Navy posted on the Red Planet, protecting 5 human colonies from indigenous Martian life forms. What's even more astonishing is that he is not the first person to speak in public about these supposed Martian habitats. 3 other so-called whistleblowers, Michael Relfi, Randy Kramer, and Corey Goode, have also provided testimonies regarding Luna and Martian bases, and a top-secret space program, all of which seemed to corroborate Captain K's account. Even Laura Magdalene Eisenhower, the great-granddaughter of President Eisenhower, claims that covert efforts were made in order to recruit her as part of a colony on Mars, one that was allegedly headed by famed physicist Dr. Hal Puthoff. Once again, pictures from Martian rovers have played a big role in promoting these revelations. Many conspiracy theorists insist that they have found proof within these pictures, that all is not as it seems on the Red Planet. So, do any of these photographs provide unequivocal proof that the rovers aren't alone on Mars? Or that they have captured pictures of bones, human or otherwise? Unfortunately not. The images are far from conclusive. The bones and other anomalies are, in all likelihood, nothing more than oddly shaped rocks. It is well within human nature to see familiar patterns, particularly those of faces, when looking at random markings or objects. This is known as pareidolia, and it is the most likely explanation for what we see in these photographs. And what of the supposed secret space program and Martian colonies reported by Captain K and other supposed whistleblowers? Whilst these accounts do make for a fascinating read, not one of those individuals has provided any proof whatsoever of their experiences. Until they do, we are stuck with the official narrative regarding human exploration of the wider solar system. But don't let that assumption deter you from your belief if you're inclined to support any of these ideas. The thought of humans having visited, or even originated on, Mars is a fascinating one, to say the least. The solar system is ancient, and particularly for those who believe in life beyond the stars, it is highly probable that we will one day find the fossilized remains of an alien life form, within our solar system or elsewhere. And let's not forget the possibility that what we are actually looking at in those images could, in fact, be bones. Or that Captain K, Michael Relfi, Randy Kramer, and Corey Goode could all be telling the truth. Until we know for sure, we should always keep our minds open.